All right, so let's practice some more finding slopes from points. Okay, so again, remember when you're given 2 points, you're always pretty much going to use this formula for slope as being y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right? So in the case of this one, y2 is 3, y1 is negative 3, x2 is 2, x1 is negative 1. But then a lot of times you're going to get this minus a negative business going on, right? So 3 minus negative 3 is really 3 plus 3, so that's 6. And 2 minus negative 1 is really 2 plus 1, so that's 3. So this would be 2. Or you could leave it as 2 over 1, right? Because sometimes it's easier, if you're going to graph it especially, to think of it as 2 over 1, which means you're going to go up 2 and over 1. Okay? And then they're all going to be done in a similar fashion, right? So this is 2 minus negative 8 over 4 minus 4. 2 minus negative 8 is 2 plus 8, which is 10, but then 4 minus 4 is 0. Remember, when we had a 0 in the denominator, we would call this undefined, right? So this line was actually a vertical line. This one was a rising line. All right, and then 7 is just going to be the reverse of 6, where in 7 we're going to get a 0 up in the numerator, and then in the denominator 2 minus 2 is 0. Negative 5 minus negative 3 is negative 5 plus 3, which is negative 2, but it doesn't even matter that it's negative. The 0 is in the numerator, so it's 0. So this is going to be a horizontal line. All right, and then one more, maybe 8, so we'll try this one. This is 2 minus 1, right? y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So 2 minus 1 is 1. But then a negative 2 minus 3 more is actually going to be a negative 5. So that's going to be negative 1/5. And you can write this as 1 over negative 5 or negative 1 over 5. Doesn't matter where you put the negative sign, but either way, this is going to be a falling line. Okay. And now the applications. So the idea is when you're doing slope and application problems, you think of it as a rate, right? A rate of change. So generally it's going to have the word per in it. Okay, so if they tell you 3 books cost $30, that means that the books actually cost $10 per book, right? Therefore, $10 is actually going to be the slope, right? The rate of change, $10 per book. Now in this case, all right, you launched a paper airplane from a height of 5 feet, and the height was taken every second until the airplane landed. So it went from 60 feet down, 60 inches down to 50 inches, down to 40 inches, so on until it hit the ground. So what happens here is you can just use your same slope formula, right? Or you can think of it as change in y over change in x. So that's what I usually do. When I have a table, I usually think of it this way. So if I'm going to do the change in the y over the change in the x, from here to here, what was the change in the y? It went from 60 to 50. So it went down 10 at the same time that the x went from 0 to 1. So it changed by 1. So this is going to be negative 10 over 1, which is negative 10. But then you might ask yourself, well, why did you pick the first two? Well, I didn't have to. I could have picked any two I wanted to, right? So I could have picked these two, and then what would have happened? From 30 to 10, I went down 20, and from 3 to 5, I went up 2. So in this case, the change in y was negative 20, and the change in the x was 2, but it comes out to be the same, which is negative 10. And what this means is, this is where you have to think of it as a rate, right? So it's really negative 10 over 1. So it's negative 10, and y was measured in inches over 1, x was measured in seconds. So the way you interpret this is it's falling because of the negative sign, right? 10 inches per second. So that's how you would interpret the rate of change in this case. The paper airplane is falling 10 inches per second. And like I had just mentioned, I can use any 2 points I want, right? So in the just example I just did, I picked two different uh, pairs of points, but I got the same result, and that's the idea. So in this case, a student opened a savings account and decided to deposit the same amount each month. So at 3 months, he had $225, and at the 5 months, he had $375. So in this case, what you're doing is you're going to turn these two bits of information into points. So you're going to let X be the number of months and Y be the amount in the account. So what you're going to do is you're going to turn 3 months, $225 into 225, and you're going to turn 5 months, $375 into 375, and then you're going to find the slope here, which is just going to be the change in the Y over the change in the X, and then this is going to be 150 over 2, but 150 over 2 is going to be 75. So what ends up happening in this case is, again, the Y was measured in dollars and the X was measured in months. So this was really $75 per month. So in other words, this student is adding $75 per month to the account. So in this case, the equation, right? Remember, our equation is always going to be Y equals, well, it's $75 per month. Well, that means you're just going to multiply 75 times the number of months. So the equation is just Y equals 75x. Right? And then you can figure out how much money the student had after any number of months, right? So after 1 month, it would be $75. After 2 months, it would be $150, and so on and so on. So last one, right? So find the slope and interpret the slope as a rate of change. So student purchases gas on 2 different days. The first day he buys 4 gallons for $9.16, and a week later he buys 7 gallons and pays $16.03. So find the average rate of change in the cost of gasoline per gallon. So in this case, you're going to say X is the number of gallons and Y is the cost. So you're going to set up points again, 4 comma 916, right? 4 gallons, $9.16, and then 7 gallons, 1603. So then you're going to find the slope between these 2 points, 1603 minus 916 over 7 minus 4, and then this is going to be 687, I think, if I did that correctly, over 3, and then this is going to be 229, sorry, it's 229. So 229, and then what does this mean in this case? Again, this was dollars and this was gallons, so this meant $2.29 per gallon. So that was going to be your cost of the gasoline. It was $2.29 per gallon. I don't like the way that problem is phrased, honestly. They should tell you that it was 2 different people bought gas on the same day, because we're assuming that the price is staying constant. In this case, right, 4 gallons cost $9.16, 7 gallons cost $16.03. So it was really a poorly phrased question, but they want you to assume that the price didn't change. So 4 gallons was $9.16 and 7 gallons was $16.03, and that means that the total, the cost per gallon was $2.29 per gallon. And then similar thing here, you're going to find out how many calories there are per M&M, right? Per piece of candy. So in this case, you can do your change in y over change in x. I always like to think when I have a table of change in y over change in x. So I'm going to say change in y over the change in x in this case. So 63 to 189, I went up by 126. And 14 to 42, I actually went up by 28. So I'm going to do 126 here over 28. And, right, and 4.5 in this case meant this was the number of calories and this was the number of M&Ms. So it's 4.5 calories per M&M piece, right? So each piece, each little M&M has 4.5 calories, which doesn't sound bad, but you never just eat one or two, right? You're going to eat a bunch. So calories are going to rack up pretty fast there. And then you have your little summary here, right? Which tells you that the slope is just a measure of the steepness in the direction of a line. You can find slope by using change in y over change in x if you're given a table. And there's the example there. You can use your rise over run definition, right, when you have a graph. So if you want to find the slope between those 2 points, you can look at it as you're going up 1 and left 2, or you can look at it like you're going down 1 and right 2, but either way you would get your negative a half slope. And then if you're given 2 points, you're just going to use your y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 definition. So then if you have the points 2, 3, and negative 4, 6, you're going to do 6 minus 3 over negative 4 minus 2, which is going to be 3 over negative 6, which is going to be negative 1/2. And then a positive slope means that the line rises from left to right, right? Negative slope means it falls from left to right. Zero slope means it's horizontal line. And the undefined slope means that it's a vertical line. And that was your Mr. Slope guy. Slope is always called the average rate of change in applications. So what you're going to end up with application problems is the units for slope are going to be units for the output per unit for the input. So like we had problems where it was dollars per gallon or calories per M&M, things like that. It was always output units per input unit.